begin painting, I want to talk about the sketch. That way when I refer to certain parts of the painting, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's also a reference photo in the description to help you with your sketch. This orange line is called the horizon line. It's a sand that the camels are walking across. Then in the middle ground on the left and right side, we have the small city in blue. Then on the left side, we have the mountains, and on the right side, the big city. This will be the darkest and furthest back in your painting. In the center of the painting, we have our star. It's going to be the main light source in the painting. I've also indicated on the mountain where you'll want to make it a little bit lighter. And then as well, it'll be on the opposite for the city in yellow. The light will also be brightest in the center of the painting, especially for this center camel. Start with some clean, fresh water and go over the entire sketch. You can see my brush had a little bit of blue left in it. That's what you see there, and it's not going to matter in the end. Our first color, we're going to be using a mix of transparent orange and burnt sienna, and we're just going to give a nice even coat wherever we lay down that water. I'm going to dab with a paper towel in the center and just lift off some of that paint because our star is coming from the center, so that's going to want to be a little bit lighter in the painting. Then I take some masking fluid and I'm just making a few marks for our star, so that way it will preserve the whiteness of the paper when we go ahead and paint our sky later on. Once that first layer has dried, we're going to add another coat of clear water, this time over the small city and then as well as the big city and the mountains. You're going to want to avoid adding water or paint to any of the camels in the painting. The first color I'm adding is a layer of Ultramarine Blue. It's mixed with a little bit of water as well, and you can see it's gliding smoothly across the page since we have that initial layer of clear water on the page as well. We're going to be adding another layer, this time on the furthest part of the painting and the darkest, which is the mountains and the big city. You'll notice I'll leave a few parts of the mountain unpainted. This is where the star is shining down, so it's going to be a little bit lighter in those areas. I'm just outlining the camels and as well as the little city so I don't paint that in. With the darkest blue, you'll notice I also left some of the middle a little bit lighter. Again, that's where the star's coming down in the middle. It's time for the second layer across the horizon line. Going back in with that transparent orange and burnt sienna mixture, just going right across the horizon and then as well as on the sides, and I'll bring up that color into the small city as well. I want the edges of the painting to be a little bit darker to have a little bit of a vignette effect, so I'm adding a little bit of ultramarine blue on the edges of the sand as well to bring the focus into the center. And then I'm doing another layer of ultramarine blue across the big city and the mountains. Using the wet on dry technique, we're going to add the details of our three wise men and our camels. This is mostly going to be paint with just a little bit of water to help the paint flow along the paper, and I'm just going to go ahead and color all of the people and all of the animals. Adding another layer of ultramarine blue on the edges just to increase that vignette effect. I've added some burnt umber to my mixture to create some shadows on the camels and the people. In my reference photo, you'll notice the sand has ripples in it, so I'm just taking a little bit of that original mixture that's really watered down and added a little bit of ultramarine blue and creating some variance in the sand. Now it's time to paint our sky. I'm adding a fresh clean coat of water across the painting. The blues that I'm using are marine blue, ultramarine blue, and Paynes Gray. I just dab all three of those across the sky, and then you'll see me dab occasionally over the star as well with a paper towel to lift that paint up and kind of keep that area brighter. You'll see me dab all the way down to the mountains. In the final painting, I didn't like it being bright all the way down there. It's up to you, but in the final painting, I just ended up lifting right around the star in just that little circle. I'm also taking some clean water and lifting a little bit of the city just on that left side where the light is coming through, creating a little bit more depth in there. Just adding a few dabs on the little city to indicate little windows and just a little bit of texture. Going in a third time onto my people to add another layer of that burnt umber and increase the darkness, especially in the center of all those figures. Now that my sky layer has dried, I'm going to add another coat of fresh water. This helps all the colors blend together on the page. And again, I'm keeping the edges mostly dark. You're going to keep adding dabs of color until you're happy with your sky. Adding another layer onto the big city. And on the mountains, just increasing the contrast between the dark and the light. Adding another layer on the edges to increase that vignette effect. I've added some Orcher Yellow and we're going to start creating our star. I also add a little bit of water to smooth out that yellow and blend it in with the sky. Adding a little bit of Orcher Yellow onto those wider spots that we left before onto the mountain and the big city, as well as some of the center camel. As you can notice, we just layer with watercolor, so here's another layer to our sky. Now to create the shadows of the camels, I have the center camel, the shadow comes straight on, and then the camels on the left, I kind of tilted the shadow a little bit more at a diagonal, and then on the right, they're diagonal in the opposite way. For the color, I've mixed a combo of my sand mixture, the transparent orange, the burnt sienna, and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. I'm creating some little dashes to give some structure to our star, increasing some of that brightness and glow around the star as well. Again, we're using Orcher Yellow here. One of my favorite parts is doing the stars. I have white gouache and water here, and I'm just flicking the brush to have that star splatter across the page. I felt like my sky was a little too dark, a little too one note, so I'm adding some more of the marine blue into that to help create a more interesting sky. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't like the contrast between the light underneath the star and the sky, and so I went back in with another light wash of the blue and just kept the lightness of the star just around that little circle there. I noticed my camel, you couldn't really see them as well, so I'm just adding a little more purple there so that they kind of pop out against the mountain. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below, and if you create your own painting, don't forget to tag me over on Instagram. Happy painting!